You ever wake up, pour yourself a hot cup of coffee, look out at the winter wonderland, and think, you know what would really complete this picture? A full-blown HOA war and a lawsuit with my name on it. Yeah, me neither. But let me tell you how I managed to star in my own courtroom drama, armed with nothing but a snowplow, a worn-out sense of humor, and a stubborn streak longer than Route 7 in a blizzard. I was halfway through clearing Maple Ridge Drive that freezing February morning when I spotted her, Patricia Harrington, barreling down the snow-packed street like she owned the place, which, to be fair, she sort of acted like she did. Designer coat whipping behind her, boots that probably cost more than my truck payment, and a look in her eye that told me I was in for one hell of a ride. I'd been road commissioner for Millbrook County, Vermont, for 3 years by then, and I could spot trouble before the engine even started. Patricia was the sort of trouble that didn't need an introduction. She marched straight in front of my plow, practically daring me to run her over, and trust me, for a split second I considered it. Not in a violent way, just in a maybe I'll just nudge her to the curb kind of way. But instead, I killed the engine, rolled down my window, and tried to sound friendlier than I felt. Morning. Gonna need you to move so I can finish clearing this section. She didn't budge. I most certainly will not move. Do you have any idea what you've done? I looked around at the road I'd just spent the last hour clearing, neat little banks of snow lined up like soldiers. Pretty proud of it, to be honest. My job. Wrong answer. She pointed, practically vibrating with rage. You've blocked the view from my living room window with that disgusting pile of dirty snow. I pay very good money to look at the mountains, not your snowbank. I took a slow sip of coffee. Ma'am, the snow's got to go somewhere. Road's got to be cleared. She fished out a folder from her coat. I kid you not, at 5:30 in the morning, this woman had HOA bylaws tucked in her jacket. She started waving them at me. Our covenants state nothing can obstruct the view. I have the documents right here. Those apply to your homeowners, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Not to county road maintenance. I'm clearing a public road. Public right-of-way. Patricia didn't care. We'll see about that. I'm calling the police. I almost spit my coffee. Go ahead. So she did. Called 911 to report that a snowplow was blocking her view. I listened to her getting passed around from dispatcher to dispatcher, her voice climbing in pitch and volume. When she finally found out, she was yelling at the road commissioner. Yours truly. Her face went from red to purple. This isn't over, she snapped, finally stepping aside. If you're thinking, wow, what a morning, let me tell you that was just the prelude. By the time I made it back to the county garage, Linda, my assistant, who could read disaster in my face like tea leaves, handed me a stack of messages. Patricia had called everyone from the county administrator to the governor's office, and she'd already filed a formal complaint with the Department of Transportation. That afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Robert Shunn, the county administrator. Now, Robert's a good guy. He's been around. He knows how this job goes. But he also knows who writes the checks come election season, and Patricia's husband was a major donor. Robert looked tired before I even sat down. Ethan, walk me through it, he said. I did. I laid out the procedures, the rules, the county standards. I wrote the damn standards myself. Robert nodded along, rubbing his temples. I know, but Mrs. Harrington has connections. She's making a lot of noise. Is there any way you can distribute the snow differently? Where? I asked, trying not to sound like I was ready to lose it. The other side's all mailboxes and driveways. I can't just bury everyone's mail. That's a federal offense. And if I block driveways, we get even more complaints. He nodded. Just do me a favor. Document everything. Photos, logs, whatever. And let us handle Patricia from now on. I agreed. But I knew, deep in my bones, this wasn't going away. 4 days later, another 6 inches of snow. I assigned Maple Ridge Drive to Mike Torres, my best operator. Gave him the same instructions. Don't change a thing. The phone rang at 6:15 a.m. Boss, you're not going to believe this. She's out here again. This time she brought friends. They're filming. Tell Am to move. Call the sheriff if you need to. By the time I got out there, it had become a full-blown protest. Signs, slogans, the whole bit. Stop snow terrorism. One read. The county sheriff showed up. Patricia and her fellow board members, yes, the HOA board, locked arms and refused to move. Arrest us, Patricia dared. And well, they did. Hauled off 4 of them for obstructing road operations. Mike finished plowing. I took photos of everything. And by sundown, the local news vans had arrived. Patricia was on TV, spinning it as government overreach. The phone at the county office started ringing off the hook. A few days later, there was a public hearing at the county board. Patricia showed up with a slideshow about property values and a hired landscape architect. Neighbors gave emotional testimony about their lost views. But then Jim Peterson, the dairy farmer, stood up and said, "I'd rather lose my view for a week than lose a family member because an ambulance couldn't get through." A nurse talked about her elderly clients needing clear roads. A teacher pointed out that if we started making exceptions for one neighborhood, the whole system would fall apart. I gave my presentation. Maps, costs, photos, regulations. We treat every road the same, I said. We can't make a special exception for one group. Not unless you're ready to bankrupt the county. The board voted 4-1 to support the road department's procedures. Patricia stormed out. 3 weeks later, the lawsuit hit. Patricia Harrington versus the county, the road department, and me personally. Property damage, civil rights, emotional distress, the whole circus. The county's insurance provided a lawyer, Michelle Brooks. Sharp, cool under pressure. "You did your job," she said. "Let them try." Patricia's lawyer, Richard Kowalski, specialized in property rights and had a flair for drama. The process dragged on for months, depositions, discovery, more news coverage, and every time it snowed, Patricia filmed us like she was building her own crime documentary. At one point, her surveyor found 4 cubic yards of snow 18 inches onto HOA property. Kowalski screamed, "Illegal dumping." Michelle barely rolled her eyes. "Margin of error in a blizzard, Your Honor." Then came a nor'easter, 20 inches overnight. I was on hour 26, running on fumes, clearing Maple Ridge because that's the job. Through the storm, I saw Patricia filming me from her window. The next day, emergency motion. Kowalski wanted a restraining order banning me from plowing Maple Ridge. The judge denied it with an opinion that was basically, "Stop wasting my time." A settlement conference was called. Patricia wanted alternating snow placement, snow removal paid by the county, an apology, $50,000 in damages, and her legal fees. Michelle didn't even blink. No, not a cent, not a letter, not happening. The county board, God bless him, backed me. If we cave now, the chairman said, we'll be fighting this forever. The trial was, honestly, surreal. Kowalski painted me as a tyrant, as if I woke up every morning plotting to ruin Patricia's view. Their expert witnesses talked about aesthetics and hypothetical property values, but couldn't provide any real proof. On our side, I walked through the logic, budget, fairness, safety law. When you're plowing at 5 in the morning in a blizzard, I told the judge, you can't get everything perfect. You do your best for the good of all. After 4 days, the judge ruled in our favor on every claim. His written opinion was a thing of beauty. Snow falls in Vermont. Snow must be removed from roads. The snow must go somewhere. The plaintiff's demands would require special treatment at significant public expense. This court will not order such an outcome. Patricia, undeterred, filed an appeal. Another 8 months of paperwork and anxiety. But the appellate court was even less patient. Appeal dismissed. Fees affirmed. The HOA got hit with a $98,000 bill for legal costs. The community went ballistic. Emergency meeting. Patricia was booted from the presidency. The treasurer called her out for misleading everyone, and a special assessment hit every homeowner for $3,000. Some people moved out entirely, disgusted with the whole mess. Patricia and her husband left Vermont for good. The new HOA president, a middle school teacher, bless her, sent me a thank you note for keeping the roads clear through all the drama. Things slowly went back to normal. You know, if there's a moral to this story, it's this. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing your ground, even when the easier path is to fold and walk away. It costs you time, sleep, maybe a few years off your life, but in the end, it's worth it. Because it isn't just about one snowbank, one angry person, or one lawsuit. It's about whether public service means something, whether rules and fairness still matter, even when someone with money and power says they don't. 3 years after it started, I was back on Maple Ridge Drive at dawn, plowing the same way, same side. A few people waved. One even yelled, "Thanks." Nobody blocked the road. Nobody called 911. That morning, the mountains were gleaming behind the houses, snow piled where it needed to be, roads open, life moving forward. It felt like justice, quiet, practical, and honestly a little bit sweet. Sometimes I wonder, was it all worth it? Should we have just caved to save time and money? Or was this the fight that needed to happen so that everyone else in the county, all the little guys with their own headaches, could just do their jobs without someone threatening to sue over a pile of snow? That's the thing about justice. It doesn't always look like a courtroom victory or a big speech. Sometimes it's just a clear road on a winter morning, with the sun breaking over the mountains, and the simple satisfaction of knowing you stood firm, so that the next guy wouldn't have to. So, let me ask you, if you were in my boots, chilled to the bone, half asleep, coffee in hand, plowing gear, would you have stood your ground, or just pushed the snow somewhere else and hoped nobody noticed? Where's the line between serving the community and bending to the loudest voice? And what's the price of letting one person's privilege set the rules for everyone else? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment. Tell me about your own battles with HOA logic or power gone sideways, or what justice means to you. Let's be honest, sometimes the only way to keep things moving is to dig in, plow through, and trust that eventually the right thing will stand tall, just like those mountains in the Vermont sunrise.